Hey, welcome to Shed to Home. I wanted to share with you how I made this old dilapidated greenhouse into this beautiful modern new greenhouse that's fully flourishing, growing lots of fruit and vegetables throughout the summer months. This was a success, rebuilding the greenhouse and saving fortunes. I've seen like my dream greenhouse in the local garden centre, and it was £20,000. I mean, just insane amounts of money, some of these greenhouses. So saved a fortune doing it this way. It's cost around maybe about, all in, maybe about £800 to £1,000 in the end. So still costs some money, but a fraction cheaper. It can be done. You can repurpose and bring things back to life. So we started by simply cleaning out the shell, removing everything, and then removing the glass. So this was like quite a tricky job because a lot of it was smashed, so we had to be really careful with that. Once all the glass was removed, it came down to just the bare shell of it and the frame, and I needed to really get that clean. There was so much moss and stuff in there. Once the frame was all cleaned up, it then was a job to source some wood. So I really wanted this wood paneling around. I ended up getting some softwood, which isn't ideal for long term, but it was just so expensive to get a hardwood. So the softwood was then measured out, and initially I hand sawed it, which took forever. Eventually we did use a chop saw because it was taking me forever to do everything by hand. So the chop saw meant we could get through the planks of wood much more efficiently. Then the frame was painted before we started to attach the wood. So the entire frame was painted in a black paint by a brand called The One. And this paint is amazing. It's like available to use. You can use this paint on any surface. We're talking wood, metal, plastic, and so easy to put on. So I'd really recommend The One brand. It comes in loads of different colors, but I've used black on the frame, and then I ended up using exactly the same paint to paint all of the wood paneling as well. So the wood paneling was attached to the frame, just simply drilled into the frame that's already existing, and it all slotted in nicely, the tongue and groove cladding. Once everything was painted and secured in place, I then got to the interior of the greenhouse. Now, I was lucky to get some old paving slabs from my parents' house, and they are so fully recycled, big old paving slabs, hefty things, heavy things, but they worked really well. So I positioned 2 beds either side and lined them with some scaffold boards, and then made enough space for the paving to go in the middle. Once the paving was in, then it was time to actually get the glass in. Now, in order to make sure that the glass sat securely on top of the new wood paneling and for water to not kind of ingress, we needed to make up a trim that we could lie on top of the wood paneling frame, and then the glass would sit on top of that. So initially we wanted to use aluminium to match up the frame and paint it, but again, that was just too costly. So we ended up just putting plastic frames for the glass to sit on. The glass, we then found that a lot of it did need replacing because it smashed quite a bit once it was being removed. But what we did have, we still managed to reuse. Some of it I had to cut, and that was interesting, learning how to cut glass. Quite a lot of failed attempts, having never cut glass before, so this was interesting. Through the help of Luke and, funny enough, our very friendly postman, who happened to be an old glazer, so he came by and helped me cut a few pieces as well. So eventually, after getting majority of the glass in, we did need to buy a few new panes from a local glazer. Once the glass was in, all of the exterior done, it was time to decorate. So we ended up popping in some new solar lights, adding in a potting table, and then it was ready to plant. But this was our finished greenhouse. And the first year was a bit of an experiment, as I've never actually grown anything before, but I had tomatoes, beetroot, carrots, squashes, peas, beans, and it actually went wild this first year. After a week away on holiday as well, it suddenly came home to what was like a jungle of a greenhouse. You could hardly step in, but the squashes just kind of took over, and the tomatoes had gone crazy as well. So it was definitely a learning curve, and this year is a great time to now explore growing new things. And as we come into the second year, like I said, I learned a few things along the way. So we've given the soil a bit of a reboost, added some manure into the soil ready to plant into this summer, set up new trellises, bamboo trellises ready for the tomatoes to give them a bit more support, along with some sweet peas that I'm going to grow this year as well. So giving everything some support. This year I'm adding in tomatoes with some basil, some spring onion with some peas, adding in still carrots and beetroot and cucumber. And then a little tip that I learned is by adding some marigolds around these plants, it will help deter any bugs. They don't like marigolds, so it helps prevent that from, all your lovely fruits and veg getting eaten by bugs. So go and grab marigolds to help prevent that. So let's see how it goes this summer. I'll share pictures along the way and you can see how things are growing. And because of the success of doing this, we've now also taken on a little Wendy house project for the children, rebuilding that, and that's coming to life. So watch for that video coming soon. Thank you for watching.